Yes, fine, thank you, thank you. Almost nearly Christmas, isn't it? Not long to go.
No, not long, not long. What's that? Few more weeks. Thankfully, I've got obviously a few more weeks till I start my shopping at least.
Do you shopping after Christmas then?
No, it's normally the day before. I'm quite lucky. I only have to do one person's, and that's my wife's. She does everything else, so
well, it makes it more easy, doesn't it?
It certainly does. But no, I think we obviously met just after burners on our last call.
Yeah,
And for one reason or another, we didn't actually use that video. But I think after a very good session recently, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to pick up that last video. You're coming off the back of your autumn campaign now, which we discussed in the last video, where you sort of go round to different lakes each year. You've obviously chose the lake you went to this year, and what can I say? It's been certainly a successful one.
Oh yeah, it's been phenomenal year, this one. Just obviously even springtime fishing was great, and obviously trip to France was good and everything else, and which came after the autumn fishing here, obviously, and yeah, no, it was amazing. I think it's just like one of those ones where you go out and you get everything you want really from a short, very hectic season with a lot of amazing fish, obviously topped off by something very special that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, no, it's been crazy. Nothing, one of those ones where you don't know where you're gonna, not knowing what to expect, and catching obviously the first fish after just about 15 minutes of fishing was a really, really big comment, which was something special, and then knowing, so all right, so you've got something, there is big fish in here, and then just like what it led into was a bit something special, but we'll touch on that. Yeah, crazy times. Yeah,
I love the way you're still a bit coy about it all.
No, well, I think that sort of like, well, you got to be a bit just the way I am really about fishing, because I don't take anything for granted, and I think that a lot of anglers, I'm not that way, but a lot of anglers are quick to jump into. I'm very happy it's not that, but a lot of anglers like really quick to jump into this and that, and I just think that I take everything like with a bit of luck, and a bit of just like just everything's easy. You get something, fishing gives you something, but you got to take what you're given, and it's just sort of like sometimes you're lucky, and just one of those times. This time wasn't it? Exceptionally lucky. So yeah,
I'm sure it wasn't all down to luck, but when we were speaking in the spring, you were talking about kind of lakes you've chosen and everything else. When you chose this lake, was you aware of the stock that was in it?
No, not with this one. No. Like we talked about, we can disclose a few things, but this one I'll obviously, just down to the nature of it, it's like I know what's going to be true about what I'm going to tell you next. So
it's funny.
It might even be from a very, very small lake. Who even knows? But this lake, no, it was just a lovely place, very big. Hadn't really gotten any idea of the stock, no. So usually did my very long baiting campaign, which is the usual 3 to 4 weeks at least, regular baiting, with a lot of bait, and yeah, the fish were there, but not in numbers. Nothing, no massive numbers. Very short, hectic period. So I'd probably say like within 4-5 nights, I haven't caught probably not all the fish in the lake, but I definitely caught the fish that were on the baits, because the fishing, it goes like first night you had quite a few bites, and then it just dwindles off very quickly. So you all of a sudden you start getting blank nights in between, and then you'll get a lot of days and you might catch the odd one. So, and then obviously it just died off, and I just I went straight off there after catching the last one. But yeah, no. So yeah, with this one, it was just sort of like a question of having a look at the lake and just wanting to try something different that I hadn't fished before again. And it was a lovely place. I couldn't. It's not a clear watered lake in any way or anything, so I couldn't really get a very good idea of natural food and things like that because it's very murky. And with, you know, obviously I found out there was also bream in there, which you find out quite quickly. But in some way or a fashion, I found that, you know, even though you have got problems with them, that if you sort of like bait over a prolonged period of time, that, you know, if you fish after a couple of weeks of baiting or a week of baiting, you will have a lot of bream on your bait. And then, but if you like keep baiting and the fit carp come in, they'll move those bream off that spot.
Yeah.
And if you keep the carp there, the bream are not going to be there. So, you know, that they're generally not an issue if you've got carp in there anyway. That's what I found anyway with the regular baiting campaign. And then if you start catching bream in between, then that's because there's not many carp, because that allows the bream to get onto your bait.
And obviously, I appreciate that. I'm probably going to ask too many questions on this, and some of it you won't want to disclose, which is, you know, fair enough. So obviously, if I do ask anything and you'd rather move on, please just say. But when you do that pre-baiting, are you doing one spot? Are you doing quite a few different swims? Kind of what's your thought pattern around it all?
What I usually do is every lake is different. So I'll go out, and this is obviously with a boat and my echo sounder, which is a very important tool for this as well, with a good side imaging to see. Obviously, you can see weed on there. You can see general hardness of the bottom, type of bottom, if you've got rocky formations, if you've got, like I said, weed, but also the density of the bottom is also important, because I generally find that I don't want it to be too hard, and you know it has to be sort of like the right type you want, because it needs to be an area that holds some sort of naturals on there anyway. It needs to hold natural food in some abundance for the fish to be. There's no reason to put in bait in an area you don't think the fish are going to be in. You might be able to draw them in anyway, but you might as well have some reason for the fish to be there in some fashion or drop by. So the type of bottom is important, and with naturals as well. So I'll usually go out on the boat, use quite a lot of time mooching around, and then what I'll do is when I've located an area that I've found, generally it has to be, you know, generally clear of weed. You don't want, you know, like massive amounts of weed. It can be little bits and tufts, but I generally make it like 100 meters long, and some kind of width. And then I'll mark the spots on my GPS, and then I'll go out and I'll spread a big amount of bait on that area, which is usually quite big. And that'll be in this instance, it'll be a mixture of tiger nuts and boilies. With, if I want really big, if I've got bream and I know there's bream, I will add maize to that, cooked maize, and that's just to bulk it up really. For it sort of like, so you've got the amounts of food, so there's something left at least for the carp to mooch around with. And boilie wise as well, it's sort of like, you know, it's 18 to 24 mil. That's the size that sort of generally go in there. So yeah. So I'll bait that, and I'll bait it regularly. So that's every second day without question.
Right. Okay. Up to what did you say? A 3-4 week period beforehand.
Yeah. I won't be fishing on it. Will not be fishing on it. I'll leave it. You know, I won't be. And people saying, okay, I won't be raking it. I won't be dragging it to see if there's any bait left. I'll just bait, leave in it, and I'll bait, and I'll bait, and I'll bait, and I'll fish it. And you know, generally it works. You will catch some fish. Sometimes you hit it off and it works really, really well. And otherwise, you know, you get some fish. But I haven't really had it like blow out in autumn time yet, where nothing really happens. But you have had tough weeks, you know, or trips, sessions where I've had an autumn. But you don't know what the stock is. So sometimes, you know, I've had 30, 40 fish in an autumn, you know, fishing there. And then other times you catch 3 fish.
Is that kind of baiting the approach that you do? Is that do you find that that's actually entertaining the fish and getting them mooching around? And I suppose where I'm going with this is, for once you've then fished it, how do you then pre-bait for the next one? Is it a case of them putting out more before you leave, or how does that work?
I think that I found it obviously, well, let's say it this way. So you've got lakes here that I've been fishing that people have fished before, and that maybe not much, but they have been fished. Anglers on there, they haven't caught anything, or that's what they say. Let's say that anyway. And or other lakes where people haven't seen carp and stuff like that. And so let's say you've got this massive area. Let's say you've got 700-800 acres. And a general stock, I've got not exactly a clue, but let's say between 50 and 100 fish, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 200, whatever. But it's such a small amount that you never know where they're going to be. So what you need to do is that I've got a GPS on them. But anyway, what I find is that, so I have, fish will swim around. You've got fish that will be in an area. And I think then when you start baiting, then you'll quite quickly get the fish in that are on the area or live there, whatever you call it. You've got fish that live in some areas. That's what I find. And then you've got fish that move around. And when you keep baiting, the fish that are in there will visit that spot all the time and even stay in the air, just around your bait, because it's easy for them to feed. And then you've got the fish that are moving around. They'll stop dropping by. Oh, that's food, that's everywhere. All right. And then they'll start maybe even staying there. And then you've got fish that will keep going by. So dropping by all the time because you've got food. So I think that's why that, like, the first night is generally when you have the best fishing, is because that's all the fish are just there.
Yeah.
So you're just hooking the fish and you're catching the fish. And then the drop will start dropping off, but that's also fish that are moving. So that sometimes when you're not catching for a couple of nights, then you might get 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes, and that's like fish that have moved around the lake and then drop by, like the you call it nomadic fish. That's what I find anyway.
And do you kind of, your baiting approach once you've started to catch a fish, does that depend on how much you're catching, or?
That's something that I've really been raking my brain with for the last 10 years, is how much is what to do, because I haven't found an exact pattern but the amount of bait that the fish can clear, even if it's not a lot of fish, is something that is going to surprise a lot of anglers. So we did have another lake where we put in like 40 kilos of bait, mixed particle, maize, tiger nuts, and boilies. And in 2 days, the bottom was cleaned up. That's 40 kilos gone. That's obviously after a long period of baiting as well. But that just shows you how much the fish can eat. And then, like, if you go out and fish one night, so I've had one night on a new lake, and I've had 9 takes from like just an hour after it started fishing until 7 o'clock in the morning. I had to go to work. So after that, you can start counting. That's, not a long, that's just like nearly every hour you get a catch. So those are not the only 9 fish that have been on that big baited area. So there's a lot of fish in there. And so I've found that. So sometimes you say, all right, so you don't want to put in too much to sort, you don't want to get the bites. And then how do you do that? And I think that I can't put up too much bait, more or less, for them, like not spook them off, but to fill them up, so you're not going to catch any at that time of year. They're just so ravenous. So I think that I did find that once a couple of years that, you're fishing and not baiting, and then all of a sudden it was all like start to die off, and I was thinking, okay, maybe the fish are not there, or I've caught the fish that were there, or on the baited spot. But then you would find that I would bait up again with the same amount and not fish for a couple of days, and then fish again, and then all of a sudden you might get 1 or 2 fish.
Yeah.
Where before I had it like you were fishing, not baiting, obviously, but I haven't yet tried, because obviously fishing the one night, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting out 40 kilos of bait and then putting my 4 rods on top of that. You might work and you would probably catch up, but I'd rather leave that for the fish just to clear off and not get hooked.
Yeah.
I've definitely found that angling pressure on lakes where the fish are not regularly fished for is not a good thing. That definitely scares the fish off. Because interesting enough, I haven't had a lot of you know, even with low stock lakes, you haven't had a why. So you turn a fish onto being in an area for a month or a long period of time going there. You catch it, you put it back out,
yeah,
and you don't catch it again. That gives some sort of idea that, all right, you know, why wouldn't the fish just go straight back out there and keep eating? You know, I've had very, very few repeat captures. I can think of 2 probably. That's one of the things that I've you know, which I think is interesting.
Mm.
So for some reason you catch them and they you know, they sod off. Why is that? You know, everybody's. I don't think they're intelligent creatures in any way. That's just my point of view. But you know, something definitely happens because you clear out the spot. So angling pressure on there is not a good thing. You know, they don't like that. Definitely, I think that, you know, obviously the fish going in there being used to just going in and feeding and not happening, and then one gets hooked, and they just get stressed out. You know, they get spooked off. I think that something's definitely happening there. But you can draw them in with bait again, but it's not the same fish.
No.
I think it's important for the bait to keep going in, but it's not an easy question to answer. I've tried different things, but I think looking at my results for the last years, it's definitely that regular baiting and maybe fishing less prolongs the period of time that you have got fish on your baited spots. But
okay.
it's so difficult to calculate because since it's just one, it's like, you know, I've got it's a year, so you know I have to wait another year to do it again, and it's on different lakes, so it would be different if I was fishing the same lake every year, baiting up, let's say fishing, and then keep baiting, trying that or doing something different. It's so difficult to do it on different lakes, isn't it?
Yeah, you build that pattern up if you go to the same lake a bit more.
You can get an idea, yeah.
And we've spoke quite a lot about how you bait and everything else, and we're kind of keeping the suspense going here on what we're here to talk about. But what was the range that you caught it on, just out of curiosity?
Well, I've been using the crustacea obviously for since me and Fence had started putting that together like some time ago. Just because it is, to me, it's my favorite type of bait. You know, I love, you know, crustacea meals and things like that. I always had. I think they're amazing. And especially the way that bait's been put together is just like, it's not because it's especially like big fish bait or anything. It's just a carp magnet, isn't it? So it works well. So obviously the crustacea is what I've been fishing with since it come out. And that's obviously the one that I was using for this as well. I did use it for testing for a big baiting campaign on a lake and caught on it, which was like a bit of a test for that, for me anyways. It's always difficult because I've been using the end blend for many years. That's a really good bait, obviously, as well for those campaigns because it goes well with the tiger nuts that I put in. You know, it works well with that. It's a nice sweet bait. The fish really love it. So changing to a different bait, not difficult. It was just like you need to jump over that hurdle, really, you know, because you've been using that other one for so many years, then kind of caught a lot of fish on that. And then having the results on that one on the lake and seeing them really, you know, feeding well on that. And obviously we brought it to France as well on the big lakes down there where you compete with naturals, and it worked really, really well on there. And you guys over there, you know, I know you've used it and everybody else, and you have good results on it. I think it's a brilliant bait. I trust it, and that was obviously no reason for me not to use it. I used it this springtime, had good results, and obviously this autumn as well was the one I went for. So yeah.
No, it is interesting when you say about making that jump, and you think it should be easy, but I don't think it is. I've used cold water all the time, and I haven't quite made that full jump. I use half and half now. I'll always have one rod on cold water and one on crustacea. I can't do that jump totally, but
and just out of interest, now we're talking about me, but we're having a discussion as well. Why is that? Why not why use 2 different baits?
I think it's a confidence thing. You know, I've always caught so well on cold water green beast, and don't get me wrong, I've caught just as consistently on crustacea now since its release, but I don't know. There's something that won't let me let go of using cold water.
Okay.
I think it's purely confidence and me not having that confidence to jump fully over to the next one.
Yeah, but it's just out of interest why mixing the baits up was all like that kind of idea. Because if you think that one bait works better than the other one, it's just use that one. You know, it's just. But I've never had like mixing things up. It's just out of interest. I've always talked to people doing that. All right, you've got people, I'll mix this with that and a mixture of that, and you're like, yeah, fair enough. The fish will, definitely. I've always been intrigued by that idea of using different things, because obviously my type of angling is totally different, because I really want the fish to go in with the confidence and eat all the baits, and I don't want my hook baits to stand out compared to I want that to be as inconspicuous as everything else. I don't use all those bits and bobs there. So yeah,
I am very similar in the sense that I won't put them together. So one will be on one rod that's completely separate from the other rod.
Okay.
So I don't mix, but I will use two separate.
Okay.
So it's a very strange option, but it works, and it's worked for the last year, and I've been, like I said, I've been consistent on them this year. So yeah, I'll stick with it until it stops working, I think.
No, I don't disagree. I just think that also one thing you have to think about. So if you're even like the lakes that you're fishing, so you've got obviously 2, 3, 4, how many rods in your area? Yeah. So you're obviously putting in your baits, this and that. So how at some stage the fish, even though they're eating bait, they're going to switch onto the bait. So they go over there mooching your cold water. Oh, we like that. They're going to look for more. So why not have that on the other rods then?
Well, that's what I'll do. If say I've got 2 on cold water, which is generally how I'll start, and then I've got the one on the crustacean. If the crustacean then starts to go mad and the cold water's not touched, I will swap to all crustacean. Okay. I just find with the waters being so heavily fished in the UK, I like to start with that option to start with, and then I can then move differently depending on what's being caught on what.
Okay.
If that makes sense. That probably makes more sense than me saying I like to mix both and don't want to swap. But
no, I think it's fine. I think it's also interesting to see, like, when we obviously Gigantica, which is a very well known commercial lake, also in the UK, obviously from all the publicity it gets. One of the things that we do, obviously, we got a lake exclusive on there that makes things a bit more easy. But everybody on that week is on the same bait. Everybody is using end blend, and we have done for years. And it's interesting to see that usually, obviously, it's also a good time of year and everything else, but you can really get the fish switched on to the bait because they find it all over the lake. I think that's one of the reasons as well, even though that people do fish it well as well, but it's that everybody's on the same bait. It makes a huge difference.
I'm sure.
Over a week that, you get them to look for it. So, yeah.
I suppose the other thing is you've got to have that lake exclusive and everyone tuned into that certain bait company as well. I think if you've got, it must be a lot harder when you're going with 6 or 7 different other people and they're all on different bait ranges for whatever reason. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's true. It is obviously something that you can only do if you've got a lake exclusive that way around. But I still think that if you've got, it's just out of interest. It's a totally different way of sort of like, but I just think that, it's just a way that I've never fished with different, with using different baits and everything else. So it's always interesting, sort of like to see how other people do it. That was just it. So bit of a jump around. Sorry about this. I just got to get my phone stuck in place because obviously
that's all right.
Whilst
you try and fix your phone there, I think we've obviously digressed, and as much as it's great to, I think that's one of the great things I love about sort of sitting down with you is you're like a sponge. You take everything in, especially when we're talking about fishing, and I like to think I do the same, and we'll change things if it isn't working. So as much as I can talk about that a bit more, I think we should get back onto a certain fish that was caught not so long ago.
Yeah, exactly. We have to probably.
So when we sat here in quite a few months ago now, back in the spring, I kind of asked you what the future held and what your plans were. Did any of them plans kind of, were any thoughts in your head that you'd be catching what you've caught?
Probably not, but I think that, like we're talking about, I think that if, for me anyways, it's never been about the next big one. You know, it's been about, yeah. So no, I wasn't thinking that, and it's because I love carp and I love big carp, yes, but it's not a question of just size. So I think that for me personally, I wouldn't be feeling comfortable going fishing just to try and catch, let's say, a new personal best for me on every trip.
Yeah.
You know, working in an angling in the fishing tackle industry, you see a lot of anglers that go fishing to get, okay, next time it has to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and at some stage you reach a point where it's not going to get to be a new PB every single time you go fishing. And unfortunately, I've just seen a lot of people burn out on that, you know, and I think it's fair enough. It's, everybody can do their own thing, but for me, that's not the reason why. But no, I was never thinking about catching a fish of that size here anyway. Obviously, it's not something that you can, you know, it's something that, you know, you have to be lucky to do, isn't it, as well, and it has to be there. So no, I wasn't thinking about that, but I was hoping obviously to catch some nice fish, which I also, including that one. So yeah, no, we can talk a little. We can talk a little bit about that fish. Obviously, that was the primary reason to do this video as well. Is it's like, yeah. So after sort of like doing some nights on this lake and catching some very nice fish as well, some big ones also, and I'm not going to go into them because they're not important in this picture. But yeah, some nice fish.
They're all important, Peter.
Yeah, they are important.
They all led up to this one fish, so they all have their relevance.
They are relevant, and obviously, but still, if you look at it this way, sort of like looking at it, the bites after, like, I think I fished it 3 nights, catching some nice fish, and then we had a couple of big storms here, and to be fair, you know, the wind direction was really bad, and it wasn't, you know, I don't mind fishing when it's rough weather, but it was just too much. It was like really bad. So I said, okay, I'm going to put in some bait, you know, and leave it for a couple of days, and then hit it after, sort of like, you know, so you know, we'd be baiting every second day, and I could, you know, I could just feel the bite ratio was going down. You know, it was starting to get to that point where it had to be a grind, and it was fair enough. And I think that after that storm there, it sort of killed it off maybe a little bit. I don't know. It was just everything. We had a lot of algae blooms, and there were different things that always, like, you know, again, autumn had been strange, very warm all of a sudden. You know, like August, it went mild and it went warm, and then it's all like the temperature started dropping and the fish just like, yeah. So catching, obviously, I had, you know, fishing night between work as well. I had got the rods out and middle of night, so I've had a screaming take, like all of them were on there, and there wasn't really too much to it, so I just played it in really and got it in the net. And you know what it's like, you know, it's, so everybody sort of like, oh, you know, big scrap and all that, but it didn't really do much, which is fair enough. And I got it in the net, this fish, and looked at it, and I thought, all right, that looks really serious, you know, kind of thing, like really big, you know, like really, really big, and it'll be interesting to see what this does on the scales, sort of like thing. So I got it into the sling and everything else, took care of it, and got it through the reeds and everything else in my waders, and sort of like got it on the mat, got everything ready, and obviously zeroed the other sling, and got that wet, zeroed that, and got it into there, and I've got the fish into that sling, and then. And everybody's probably thinking, why is he transferring it from one sling to the next, kind of thing? I say, well, that's because I always, you know, wet my sling off, get the water off, and then I zero my scales with that. That's just the way I do it. I don't deduct the, you know, weigh the sling afterwards and all that kind of stuff. It's just the way I do things. So fish into that, and obviously lifted it. And you know what, I don't have a tripod with me on those fishing adventures there, because I try to travel as light as I can, because a lot of going to far out places on the lake and different things, you try to keep travel as light as you can. But it just the scales just spun around like to over 24 kilos, which was like, all right, which is like really big for here as well, like immensely big. And I just, I settled for like, I couldn't, I had no place. Where were you going to do? You can't hang the scales off anything. So I sort of like settled for 24.2 kilos, which was, I knew obviously that would be a potential new record for Denmark. So what you do then, obviously you've got to get it verified, and you have to have a witness on it and everything else. And I was far away from home, and it was the middle of the night. So I thought, I got a mate of mine. Well, if I can't sleep, why is he going to? So I gave him a drink. And I said, well, you mind taking the drive this morning, sort of like, I know not now, but getting up early, I have to go to work, and driving down and bringing down, some kind of stabilization so we can weigh it properly and everything else and get the correct weight and things like that. And he did. So he come down in the morning and we weighed it. It was exactly 24.4 kilos on the scales. So obviously a bit heavier than what I weighed it, but obviously it's shaking and stuff like that. So yeah, because of obviously keeping it still. So yeah, so he come down and witnessed it and everything else, and we did the pictures in the morning light and put the back of the fish back. Just swam off. There was nothing there. No, everything was just that. Except the size. It was just not normal, is it? Catching a fish like that here. Catching a lot of French fish that size and different things, but just getting a fish that size here is amazing, isn't it? And again, the amazing part about it was sort of like I caught I think 30-pounder a couple of days before, which was just as amazing, I'll be honest, because it's one of the fish I've probably ever been caught before. So catching that one was sort of like a bit surprising, because all right, so what else is in here? You never know, kind of thing. That's a bit of a hidden gem. So yeah, so getting that, I was a bit sort of like, so we decided I was going to obviously I had to send in all the details to the record committee. They have to look at it, and obviously we've got all the measurements, got videos of it. Guys, the witness as well, and the scales have to be verified. So you're sending your scales to be checked off as well. So obviously they were spot on. So there's nothing there. So yeah, it was verified back in, I think in October, wasn't it? So it's a bit of a time ago now that it was verified. But yeah, so that is now so lucky to be like the official Danish record now, isn't it?
How does it feel?
Yeah, it's never something that I was fishing for, So as I've always said, it's like if you keep, chasing your luck, and eventually you're going to catch it, aren't you? So it's just that time, really, I guess it's just lucky, that fish wanted to pick up the bait, hopefully someone else might catch it if they give it a try. I don't know. But it's just the sheer size of the lake. It's like, all right, I might, it might never be seen again.
Yeah. I like the way you're so almost not downbeat. What's the word? Where you talk about it, the luck, and that fish just picked up your bait on that right occasion, and we've spoke quite long in length about how your baiting approach was, and how much work you actually put into going onto a new lake and choosing these lakes. Yet you put it down to just mere luck.
Yeah, it is.
No, you have to take some of that sort of actual work rate of what you put into is one of the reasons why you were there, and why your bait was there.
Oh yeah, no, but I agree with that. But obviously, I can't choose the size of the fish. That's what I'm talking about. You can build up carp fishing. This is one of the things that's actually I find correct, is that people talk about. It's like it's what do you call it? It's a game of percentages. So well, it is. So if you look at it this way, so bait, and you've got your sharp hooks and all the bits we're not going to go into anyways, but all the building, like stacking on top of each other. Yes, I agree on that. And the right tackle, your line, whatever, all that kind of stuff. but you still cannot choose. This is my point of view. I know that people think differently, and you've got your target anglers that'll say, yes, you can catch that specific fish if you know this and that. Yeah, that's fine. But you cannot choose what fish is going to pick up your bait. It's just the way it is. You cannot choose it. It's the way it is. So it's the same thing. So everybody's saying, all right, if you've got so many people saying, all right, so if you use this bait, you're going to catch more comments. If you use fish meal, you're going to catch a mirror. If you use, all that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing, like, if you use big baits, you're going to catch big carp. Yeah. So when we're in France, so we catch, on 2 times 30 mil boilies, we'll catch 20s. No, it's not true. They still, if they want it, they're going to have it, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I think that we have to look into that, like with angling, is that it's a chance. Luck is a very important factor in a carp angling and any type of angling. You cannot choose. Yes, if there's one fish in there and it's 80 pounds, when you catch something, that'll be that. I agree with that. But on lakes that you've got no clue what's in there and other pieces, you cannot choose and pick what's going to pick up your bait. So, you just got to enjoy what you're catching, really. I think that's so important.
Do you know what? That's probably one sentence that I wholeheartedly agree with. And it's the enjoyment of carp fishing. I think too often, you mentioned it earlier, and it's each to their own. You mentioned earlier that, so many people were out there and they're always pushing to get their new PB and everything else. But for me, carp fishing is about the enjoyment and the thrill of that bending the rod rather than what's at the end of the rod, for me personally. But
yeah, no, but I think that everybody sort of like goes angling for their own, whatever, what gets them going. And I think that's the way it should be. I just think it's so important not to push other people to feel the same way as you. And like I say, there's so many wrong ways to do things, but there's really no right ways to do them. Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. It makes a lot of sense in Danish when you say it like that, but it's just the way it is. Because if you look at it, so yeah, everybody's got their own view on carp fishing, and I think that a lot of people like to put it into, like, to take out if they can remove the luck factor, out of angling, and then they think if they can do that, you'll have a higher chance of saying, all right, if I do this right, 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 I'll catch more fish. Yes, I agree on that. But in the end, there's so many factors we cannot change or decide. Even the best anglers that you see, they have a lot of blank trips on their hands, and it's just the way it is.
We only hear about the good captures. We never hear about the blanks.
No, but I think it's important to talk about them as well, because they're the ones that are really important in the end. It's sort of like the time that you use on the bank, and that's the time that you sort of like, if you think about it, so that, it doesn't matter. It's different from people, but some people will take, blanking for 5 nights is a long time, and somebody will say, right, I've got hundreds of nights. It doesn't matter. But the time leading up to that capture, whatever it is, will make you forget all those blanks and make it all worth it. And I think that's sort of like important part of this, is to understand that. People also ask me about this. Oh, you don't really seem too worked up about it. Yes, I am very happy about this capture. It's just the way I am as a person. It's sort of like, I like my fishing, but I also respect that there's a lot of things that, where people sometimes tend to get their arms up a little bit too much and say, I'm the king of the world, which, because of me, when I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But, we also have to remember that Lady Luck has a big part to play in this, and it's all about something else as well. I think it's just I'm just a bit different about those things in the end. I'm maybe a little bit laid back about it. It's not because like a nonchalant thing or anything. I'm truly happy about it. Don't misunderstand. But I think it's just a question of sort of like saying, yes, I caught that fish. I'm really happy about it. And this and that. And we're having a chat about it, and obviously it's caught on a bait from DT baits and stuff like that. That's also a reason why we're talking about it. But again, it's not the main reason for it, is it really? It's the reason for this is all like, it's carp fishing. And there's so many different factors. We can say, oh, we caught this fish because of that bait, which we did that day, but would have eaten something else? We don't know. It's all the fact. It's just, I think it's important to remember these things sometimes, about the fishing. Yeah. that there's a lot
It
of things that we
certainly
cannot
is.
affect. Yeah.
But it's such an amazing feat, and I appreciate you are who you are, and like you say, you might not be sort of running around cheering and everything else, but I know full well you are. Having even spoken to you before this video and everything else, I know you are very humble and proud of what you've achieved. So congratulations and well done.
No, thank you very much, Adrian. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I think it's an amazing fish, and I think I am quite secretive about my angling as well, as you know, and I think this one, and everybody's saying, oh, you're just showing it off because it's a record. And yes, that might be one of the reasons why as well, is because obviously it needs to be publicized to become, the official record. And I think that, if we don't keep we're talking about the Danish system anyway, like with the records and stuff like that, because there's maybe some people that'll think, all right, or maybe there has, we never know, maybe someone's caught a bigger fish that's, they've never told about, and fair play to them. And that was maybe one of the reasons why I was a bit reluctant about publicizing the fish, was sort of like thinking, all right, because you always have, some people coming out of the bushes saying, right, back in 1989, on a spinner, I caught a 30-kilo carp in some lake, which is much bigger than that one. And I was but I think that we need to keep the list updated as well. And I've always said that, we've had, if we catch a fish like that, other people deserve to see it as well, I think, anyway. That was sort of like my point of view on it. So I know
and I think
a bit about that. So
yeah, we did, and I think that's why this video, we mentioned previously we did the other video, and it was the right time to pick back up on that, because some people might watch this back and say, well, in poundage it's about 50, 54. All right.
Yeah, I think it's I guess, probably around that size.
And some people might think back, that's not a huge fish. But actually, when you connect it to our previous video where we talk about the history of Denmark and everything that goes before it, actually it is a big fish, and I think it's something to be hugely proud of. There's not many people that can sit there and say that they've got their country record. So congratulations and hats off to yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adrian. I appreciate that. It's going to be interesting to see, obviously, because it's been verified, a few months ago, but I haven't done anything with it. I haven't put it up on any of my social media and stuff like that. And this will obviously be the first time that people are really going to know about it publicly. So I hope that people enjoy it and share the excitement of it a little bit as well, and probably, hopefully get inspired a little bit to go out and try some of the adventures that are out there. Not because that you have, like, all the usual, that's the untrodden path and all that kind of stuff, all the usual kind of, but just like try and go out and do something different, because they are out there, talking for Denmark, but everywhere else as well. If you sort of like, and I think that there's obviously, you need maybe the time as well for like to go out and catch fish like that on lakes that are that big. It's not something you're just going to do in a couple of days. I will say that. But I think that with this one, like, I've just scratched the surface there. I haven't, I fished it for 2 weeks. That was it. So,
one of the shortest autumn periods you've had.
Sorry?
One of the shortest autumn campaigns you've had.
Yeah, definitely. No, it was ridiculous. Yeah, weather-wise, it was too hot, and then obviously, and then I had to go to France straight after. So yeah, it was a bit of a hectic one, but yeah, caught a few. It was really good, amazing. Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you very much for sharing and allowing us to be the first to share it on socials as well. It's been a pleasure, and I think. We mentioned it last time. I think we should do more of these. I don't think we'll probably sit here and talk about the record too often, but I think we should certainly do some more videos like this and get. You've mentioned it a few times in this video and the last one. I think it's more about publicising the sport itself and getting more people into it. So
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be great. We'll. I think we should do more videos and a bit of a chitty chatter. Maybe we can do some where we engage some of all the viewers as well. You know, more.
Yes.
We'll have a look at that.
Some of the
The
lives.
future, maybe. Yeah.
Very good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But no worries, mate. No, thank you very much for having me on again.
Thank you. And what the future brings in Denmark for carp fishing for yourself, we're obviously always looking forward to finding out what that brings. But all the best for Christmas, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, likewise. I'll send you some shark for Christmas.
Yeah, I still have nightmares on that shark, so I'd rather not.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Peter.
All right. Cheers. Bye. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
And yourself. Cheers.